There are so many random incidents that impact our careers. We tend to maybe go to school somewhere close to home, some on a subject that we know, or on the subject that our parents advised us to study, and then you start working, and the first job you get is usually just whoever is willing to pay you to do a job. So there are so many coincidences involved in careers, and I think being very intentional about it has some very large benefits. We think that there's a large potential in having people spending time on planning their careers in order to sort of maximize the impact that they have. There have been done large studies on job satisfaction, and it seems at least like there's a correlation between meaning or fulfillment at work and job satisfaction. I think what we focus mostly on is that there are some objective truths about the world. There are some problems that are bigger than others, and we try to quantify those. We're very interested in looking at where one extra person could make the most difference. There are so many jobs out there, so having some sort of lens, or trying to having somewhere to start looking is important, and this is also a sorting mechanism in a sense. If you have many options, then why not start by the most impactful thing?
Jon, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. You work for Effective Altruism Norway, which is an organization that you'll definitely get more into, I think, afterwards, but that works very evidence-based with finding the best solutions to some of the world's largest, most pressing problems to create the best world possible for everyone, forever. And your particular role, and one of the reasons I'm super excited to have you here today, is that you are a career advisor, but not just a career advisor, but an impact career advisor. Which I wonder if you can start by talking a bit about what is a career advisor for impact careers.
Thank you for having me here, first of all. So I think just very briefly, it's about trying to help people having a big impact on the world. As you said, our motto for Effective Altruism Norway is to create a better world for everyone forever. And we think that there's a large potential in having people spending time on planning their careers in order to sort of maximize the impact that they have from that.
One of the best productivity tips there are is just before undertaking any task, especially an important task, just spending a few moments just to plan, okay, what's the best strategy, what's the best way of approaching this task. Mm-hmm. For example, when trying to have a productive day, we start the day by planning out the day, mm-hmm. just spending a few minutes. If we spend just 1% of our time for planning our career, of the time that our career is usually going to take, that gives us quite a lot of time for actually trying, testing, failing, figuring out what to do. So I think the vast majority don't do this, so I think it's so interesting to actually put focus on this.
Yeah, I think there are so many random incidents that sort of impact our careers, so we tend to it's a bit random what we study. We tend to maybe go to school somewhere close to home, some on a subject that we know, or on the subject that our parents advised us to study, and then you start working, and the first job you get is usually just whoever is willing to pay you to do a job. So there are so many coincidences involved in careers, and I think being very intentional about it has some very large benefits, as you're saying. And if you can if you can spend 1% of your career time on planning, then I think it's probable that you will be at least 1% more effective. So I think that's like the baseline.
Yeah, and probably happier as well.
Hopefully there's a correlation between sort of impact or meaning or ethics, whatever word is your preference, and happiness, and I think so. And there have been done large studies on job satisfaction, and it seems at least like there's a correlation between meaning or fulfillment at work and job satisfaction.
So then if I want to figure out a way of having a higher impact with my career, where do I start?
I think for most people you have to start by figuring out what is important to you. So there are many problems in the world and there are many solutions, but these things are, first of all, they're very personal. So something which is very important for you might not be important for me. And then secondly, and I think what we focus mostly on, is that there are some objective truths about the world. There are some problems that are bigger than others, and we try to quantify those. So the starting point for most people who come to me as a career advisor will be to ask them, so what do you think is the most pressing problem in the world? And then secondly, try to challenge them. So are there any, what facts could change, or what facts should I give them to change their opinion on that? And sometimes people will say, okay, yeah, you're right, there's something I've overlooked. Or sometimes people come to me and all I do is sort of giving them some confidence in their assumptions and saying that, yeah, this is a good plan and keep going with this and you will have impact.
Yeah. So then I should try to find a cause that is objectively important and also preferably close to my heart, that I am particularly interested in.
Yeah, so now we focus, yeah, so it's both like the what are you interested in and the objective bit, and then the next step is usually to find out, so what are you fit to do? So which skills do you have? What interests do you have? What career capital do you have from the jobs you used to have? So yeah, that's like the second bit, and usually I think it's the other way around. At least for me, when I went to high school, I went to the career council and they said, okay, so what do you like to do? I like to play football, and then sort of try to plan a career from that, from interest, which is a very important aspect because we are going to work for lots of years, so it needs to be work that we enjoy to a certain extent, but we believe that you can also change what you enjoy, and if you work on something meaningful, you can enjoy that too. So yeah, that's like the second. Yeah, so those two things maybe.
Yeah. And you also speak a lot about neglected causes.
Yeah, I think that's probably what sets us apart a bit from lots of other people who think about impact. So neglectedness is, it's quite simple. It's about how much difference does an extra person or an extra dollar or an extra euro contribute to solving a problem. So I think one good example could be global pandemics. Before the pandemic, global pandemics were a quite neglected issue on a global basis. Even though we had quite good numbers, the likelihood of there being a pandemic is quite large. They come at regular intervals. We've had several flus during the 20th century, and in a sense it was only a question of time of when a new pandemic would come. But even though all that knowledge, it was not that many people who were actively working on how to solve and prevent a new pandemic. So that's maybe one description of the neglectedness factor.
Are there any surprises in terms of issues or types of jobs which have a much higher impact than what we would think, or what mainstream societies thinks? Or are there also some jobs that we think are very impactful and that might not be that impactful?
I'm not really sure if there are, if it's not super surprising maybe at the big level, but when you start looking at which ways of working with a problem, then that's where it maybe gets a bit surprising. So there's one very famous example from international development and aid work, where you have different kind of interventions trying to get the most education per $100. And I think the most effective way of working, according to this study, is by simply giving information to parents about how valuable education is, and it's hundreds of times as effective as the sort of second option, and it's not necessarily intuitive. And I think that's what we try to do a lot of the time, is to sort of check our intuitions and see does this make sense. So you will find some surprises in there.
I remember I read a while back that one of the most important occupations throughout history has been the plumber, because when we first started getting proper sanitation, water, etc., disease numbers they really plummeted, which is interesting. And then today this is a very established occupation, so that one more plumber or one less plumber wouldn't really make much of a difference, as you're saying. But it's interesting. So this is probably, as you said, with the pandemic, it changes with society as well. And that's of course part of what's challenging about this, trying to sort of always have the right information and enough data and all that. So it's definitely very complicated, but I think it's still very valuable for someone to try and do it. So How do you measure something that's so complex as the impact of an entire career? What are the limitations?
Yeah, I think it's difficult because first of all, it has to be counterfactual to a certain degree. So we have to sort of try to establish that, okay, so this person has moved from one line of work that's probably very useful in a sense, and then to see if they've changed over to another career. And whether that's better for the world or not is very hard to say, but so usually that's what we use, or look very qualitatively at case studies for people having changed their lines of work. And when looking at impactful careers, we usually try to look at, as you said, neglectedness, and then of course scale. So are they working on a very big problem? That's probably better than if they're working on a very small problem. And then there's the last question: are they working on a problem which is tractable? So is it possible to solve that problem that they're working on with the tools that they have available? But it's definitely very challenging to sort of say that someone is working on a sort of more impactful thing than others. But I think it's possible.
I think it's an interesting framework to start thinking about this, and I work in the non-profit sector, and of course it's very difficult to measure our impact, but at the same time it's very important to try to get started. And before finding you, or before finding out about the effective altruism movement, I had to make my career decision, or at least my first career decision, during my master's program, and then I did human rights and migration, and for quite a long time I thought that the best possible way to contribute to the world would be for me to join the Red Cross or Doctors Without Borders, and to be an aid worker wherever the conflict was the most severe. And then I was always planning out my career at the back of my head, and then I started asking more critical questions to myself, and then eventually I found out I reached the conclusion that I quite miss my home. I think I would be quite stressed in a situation like that. I don't think I would necessarily be particularly good at this, and I also knew that these were some of the most popular jobs out there, that there would probably be 1,000 people in line behind me who were probably just as good as me, maybe better. at doing this work, so my presence there would not make a big difference maybe at all. So then coming back here and then starting an organization that did not exist or would not have existed if I had not been part of this, that for me was a big realization, and this I think is one of the reasons why I find it so fascinating what you're doing, and very important trying to discuss and talk with people about this as well.
Yeah, and I think you're touching on something very interesting, and the fact that we have a world which is full of problems but also potential solutions, and looking very actively for how to solve these problems, I think has great benefits in itself. So being intentional about maybe starting a new organization, or maybe within government finding a new program or a way to scale an already effective program within a government can be super effective. And there are so many of these solutions that are sort of counterintuitive, or they're solutions to problems that we might have thought were already solved. One good example is this policy program running in sub-Saharan Africa called Lead Exposure Elimination Program. They're working to eliminate lead from paint, which is a problem that I, until very recently, thought was solved in the 80s. We've known that lead is very poisonous, but now it turns out that there's lead in paint in a lot of countries, and yeah, no one knew, but now they've figured out, and they've found a very good solution by cooperating with industry and governments in how to sort of regulate and take this lead out. And yeah, this program is 5 years old, and I think it's a good example of something that you thought would have been solved, but it's not. But someone searched and they found a problem and a solution.
This is a very interesting example, because it would be, like you said, it's very hard to come across this solution. It's very hidden in a way. How, as someone who wants to have an impact with the career, most of that work of analyzing different careers has already been done, so that is not something that you as a job seeker has to do. How to navigate the landscapes of all the information that's out there, how to find out what causes, what kind of jobs have an expected higher impact.
Yeah, so I think there's you have to navigate this landscape as any other landscape that has to do with learning. Usually you have to talk to people, or read books, or calculate something, or try something and see if it works. So it's in a sense quite commonsensical. But then of course there are some searching in areas where there might be big problems, for instance. They could be geographical areas, for instance. I know that some of these sort of think tanks that are working to find the big problems and the big solutions are firstly usually searching in big countries or people with dense populations, because there you have a lot of people, so the scale factor ticks off very easily. So that's that's one way, but I think practically for a job seeker it's more about surrounding yourself with the information and with people that are also interested in doing something good. And to me that's what effective altruism is about, by surrounding myself with people who are very intentionally looking to solve big problems.
And what advice would you give someone who is very early in their career, who's just trying to figure out what path to take?
So first of all, ironically, I don't love giving advice because I think a lot of the time people don't take that well to advice. So when I do my job, I try to ask questions more than I give advice. Secondly, though, people come to me for advice, so when forced, I think the first and best advice I give anyone is just try something, act, just do something. And those that tend to sort of take some small steps, they also tend to take bigger steps in the long run. So yeah, act. I think that's like one of the main, and seek new information, challenge yourself, be in uncomfortable spots, meet new people. Yeah.
And for someone who is more towards, or who are well established in their current career, current position, they don't want to make any major changes. Are there things that they can do to increase the impact that they are having?
I think also ACT is a good advice to those, because you can sort of take small steps and not necessarily make a radical change, but also small steps can turn into radical change. So it depends a lot on what the person wants, though. So if you're asking if someone actually don't want to make a change, then maybe I'm not the person they should talk to, because that's like a very sort of core part of what we're trying to do. But I think just like, yeah, making some small steps and maybe preparing, because if you don't want to make a radical step now, if you're still sort of haunted by the idea of impact, then checking out some small things now, making a couple of phone calls, reading a book, can establish the ground for making a bigger change in a few years. Because yeah, transition involves friction a lot of times, so you need to sort of, yeah, it can take time to move from like an established career into another, into another career, but we've seen it happen a lot. And then I don't know if I'm going to give people advice on how to be more effective in their jobs, because that's very sort of, it's maybe even more like specific to each person. But yeah, maybe being intentional about your values, something like that. Start there, and then.
Are there any sort of general advice in terms of things that you can do if you don't feel ready to shift careers, or you are really happy where you are, but you want to maybe to bring more social impact into your workplace?
Yeah, so there are some obvious ways that you could do that, and part of the effective altruism movement is also about giving money or donating. So if you know what you really care about, and you're in a job that you really love and you don't want to move anywhere else, and you have the financial flexibility to give, then that's an important part of the effective altruism movement. So then maybe going through your donations, if you're already giving to a cause, be it climate change or be it something else, just taking a couple of hours, sitting down, look at your look through your donations and think, okay, so are these the biggest problems, or the problems that I really want to solve, or can I look for someone who's working in a very effective manner to solve a problem that's even more important to me?
Are there any skills or any experiences that are particularly useful if you want to have in the future a higher impact with your career?
I'm not really sure if there are skills that are more useful in a high impact career than in a usual regular career. I think there's a lot of knowledge on this outside effective altruism as well, and I think I would give some very boring and generic advice on this, like learning how to write, how to analyze, how to calculate things, how to collaborate, how to communicate, very sort of basic broad skills. And then when you move further along in your career, there will be technical things that you might want to learn, but those are also so career or path specific, so it's hard to give sort of general advice. But yes, those are important. Flexibility, I think, seems to be getting more and more important on the job market, so the ability to change between both lines of works and between cause areas, between working at an organization for 1 year, maybe for a company, another year for government, another year. And of course the elephant in the room, AI. So there's obviously things happening in the technological world, and some people I see are giving advice on not learning that much about AI because it will be implemented in things like Outlook, in Google Workspace, and you will get the sort of functionalities from the big companies when it's mature. I sort of think that it's good to stay ahead of the curve. So yeah, learning how to like effectively use artificial intelligence is something that I'm seeing. It's being asked more and more in the job market, and it's not very likely for that to disappear as far as I can see.
One thing that strikes me with many of the jobs that are particularly highlighted as highly impactful, that are often advertised to job seekers who want to have a higher impact, is that they naturally are quite competitive, because there is quite a big body of people who wants to have the biggest impact possible. And so many of these jobs that at least are out there already, who are kind of proven that they have a high potential impact, they can be hard to get. So I wonder if you have any advice, if you're not that competitive, or if it's difficult to find one of these high impact jobs, what are other ways that you can do to have a higher impact?
Yeah, I think keep trying. That's one thing. Like, being ambitious is always going to be very difficult in any field. So I think for anyone, even the highest performers will feel that having a very high impact will be hard. So I think keep trying is like one thing to do. And other than that, there are so many ways of volunteering, contributing, be that in effective altruism or another organization. Yeah, I think there are so many ways of contributing at the level that you're at, and I think that can be a bit hard maybe to find what's your level, but being realistic about that and then starting and doing something at the level that you're at is maybe good advice. So if you are extremely, if you have sort of all the credentials from the very competitive schools, then try to do something very competitive. If not, then you need to start from where you are and then build yourself up from there.
Something that we talk about a lot in Handprints is that we do thousands of decisions or choices every day that we do consciously or unconsciously, and they all have some sort of impact on the world around us, positive or negative. And I personally believe that one of the best ways of identifying and being good at making the high impact choices is also to try to look at this a bit more broadly, to start small, start with what's practical, start with what's within your reach, and then develop a habit where impact becomes part of the whole equation. One of the things that is always there at the back of our minds when making a decision, small or big, and that, as you said as well, it's easier to make the right career decision in terms of impact, in terms of happiness, if you have some sort of basis, some experience with prioritizing this throughout your life.
Yeah, and I think also just caring in general. It requires practice as well, and if you just start caring and doing the stuff that you care about, then that's probably a good thing. I don't know, I don't have all the answers, but it seems like a good thing to do.
And Jon, if you had 1 minute to talk and the message would be seen by everyone in the whole world, how would you spend that minute?
Oh yeah, this is difficult. Yeah, you asked me this question in advance, and I've been thinking a bit about it. First of all, will they listen? because that's important. But yeah, I'm not sure if they would listen or not. But I think if I could say one thing, and if I could have everyone listen, then maybe care more about your relationships, both to those close to you and those far away, both geographically and the coming generations. Just put effort into relationships, I think, is a very valuable thing to do. Be that work relationships or home relationships or anything, just care a bit more about other people. I guess that's what I wish for, at least. So yeah.
That's very nice. That's very much in line with another guest that's coming up as well, who Melanie Joy. She's focuses very much on, or the core of her work is that relationships is the source of everything that's wrong in the world, or also everything dysfunctional relationships, but also everything that also makes it the solution to everything. Yeah. To treat others the way you would want to be treated yourself, be them your best friends or people people somewhere else that you've never met, or humans or non-humans, just treating everyone with dignity and respect is...
Yeah, we haven't talked a lot about that here, but a very important part of effective altruism is also trying to be impartial and trying to expand your moral circle to care about other people, and so it's cannot go wrong with that, I think.
And how to do, is this something that the effective altruism movement looks at, how to actually expand your ethical circle or your moral compass?
It's probably been done. There are people thinking about a lot of things in the effective altruism movement, but the concrete steps of how to expand your moral circle, I can't remember having read anything about that, but I think it starts about caring and trying to be impartial. But I don't have a good answer to which source to sort of go to for that specific thing.
We have a tradition where each guest leaves a challenge for the next guest and those who are listening, with the aim of improving the positive impact either on the person themselves or the world around. What challenge would you like to leave?
I think I would like to challenge that person and those listening to sit down for 10 minutes and think about what they think is the most important thing they could possibly be working on or contributing towards, and then see what happens. Are they taking the consequences of that, or are there ways they could sort of move in a small direction towards doing what's most meaningful for them?
And for all of the people who have listened to this and are leaving this conversation super inspired, really wanting to see how if and how they can improve the impact of their career, are there any further resources, like what would be the next steps or the next resources? Yeah, so if you're based in Norway, we have a brand new service called Meningfylt.no, which we're very proud of, where we offer this advice as a service for free for people who want to sort of explore their own careers, their opportunities, their skills, their options. There's an international NGO called 80,000 Hours, and they have over 10 years of experience, and they've gathered a lot of research and inspiration and readings and tools on these issues. So that's something I absolutely recommend. Also another organization called Probably Good, which is sort of in the same sphere, but looking at it from a different lens. So those are some sources. Some of these places also have advertisements for jobs that you can actually go and look and just search and see if there's something that aligns with your values. So just like looking about the job market. And my impression, as with many things, now the people who try to have a more positive impact with their careers are often people who stumble across this more randomly. Maybe they have a friend who cares a lot about this, and someone who introduces them to one of these books or to the movement. How can we as a society, on a more structural level, promote this way of caring a bit more, or this conscious of how do I choose my career, for people to help people choose a career that's more meaningful both to themselves and to the world? Yeah, I think first of all, there are also other actors that are working on this, and I think that's important to acknowledge that we're not the only ones trying to make the world better. You have sort of, politics have been trying to do this for years, economics and all kinds of academics, and so it's not like it's completely overlooked, but I think we bring an intentionality to it that's maybe new. So I don't know how we could do more about it as a society, but thinking more about it and acting on those thoughts maybe. Reading widely, I think, is also everyone could do that more, but how to make the world better. It's sort of something I try to solve at work at my desk every day, but it's not that simple. But caring again, maybe, just helping each other. when I was playing the introduction for this podcast, I realized that you are the only impact advisor that I know, and I know through my work so many career advisors. So I think it would also be interesting to try to shift this around. It should maybe be the rule rather than the exception that impact is one of the things that we consider when choosing a career. I think that would change the world quite a bit if that, along with salary, personal interest, etc., is one of the things to consider. I think that would be very interesting as well.
Yeah, it's definitely a conversation that I'm very willing to have, and I think it's very valuable because also there are so many jobs out there. So having some sort of lens or trying to having somewhere to start looking is important, and this is also a sorting mechanism in a sense. If you have many options, then why not start by the most impactful thing?
Thank you so much, Jon, for the conversation. This was really inspiring, and this is definitely something that I'm bringing with me into my job, and I hope it's useful. I'm sure it's useful for all of the people listening as well.
Thank you so much for having me and for focusing on these things, and I wish you well with your impact path and everyone listening as well.